I used to fall asleep to the sound of his keyboard, the quiet tapping, familiar, steady, innocent. I thought he was just working late or reading his usual forums, but over time the keys grew quieter, slower, and I could sense he was being careful not to wake me. It began with the emotional distance. He stopped holding me as I drifted to sleep. I chalked it up to stress. We were 3 years into our relationship. We shared rent, grocery lists, Netflix passwords. And I thought trust, but then there were the 2 a.m. showers, who showers at that hour, and the texts he'd turn over to hide, the sudden password on his phone after years of transparency. One night, I couldn't sleep. Maybe I didn't want to. I pretended. I lay there breathing slowly, letting the silence cradle me. Then I heard it, his low voice, a whisper, coming from the hallway. "Yeah, she's asleep. I miss you too." My chest tightened. I didn't move. I didn't confront him, not that night. The next morning, he kissed my forehead like always, made coffee, smiled, but I couldn't taste the sweetness in anything he did anymore. I started noticing more. The perfume on his coat that wasn't mine, the way he was too quick to volunteer to walk the dog for an hour, the increased energy he had for the gym. I checked the phone bill. A number he called almost every night. I called it. A woman answered. "I think you should talk to him," she said quietly, and hung up. When I finally confronted him, his face didn't show guilt, just exhaustion. He admitted he'd been emotionally connected to someone else for months, a co-worker. It started with long talks during his lunch break. "She just understood me," he said. "You've been distant too." We cried. I raged. He apologized. We tried therapy, but the emotional intimacy he built with her, while I slept just a few feet awake, couldn't be undone by counseling or timelines. Eventually, I left. I learned that infidelity isn't always about sex. Sometimes it's about the secrets built in the quiet, the vulnerability shared in texts and midnight calls, the emotional pieces you give away while your partner lies next to you, unaware. And while I grieved the loss of what we had, I also grieved the parts of myself I ignored. My intuition, my needs, my voice. It always started after midnight. The house would fall quiet, the lights dimmed, the weight of the day fading into silence. I would curl into the comfort of our bed, our room filled with the kind of darkness that wraps around you like a blanket. I trusted the silence. I thought it meant peace. I thought it meant safety, but somewhere between 100 and 300 a.m., the rhythm of our life changed. At first, I barely noticed it. A light turned on in the hallway while I slept, the subtle creak of floorboards as he stepped out of the bedroom, the flicker of his phone screen casting light across the ceiling. Small things, inconsequential, I told myself. Everyone has restless nights. Then came the longer absences. I would stir around 200 a.m., reach across the bed and find his side empty, still warm but rapidly cooling. I'd listen, the soft tap of a keyboard, the low murmur of his voice, sometimes muffled, sometimes clear enough to catch a word or two. I'd call his name half asleep. He'd return quickly, slipping back into bed with a gentle, "Sorry, couldn't sleep." He always smelled slightly different, like air from outside or someone else's perfume faintly clinging to him, but I ignored it. I convinced myself it was my imagination. One night, I woke up to the buzz of his phone. It lit up his side of the room. The name that flashed on the screen wasn't familiar. Alyssa. No last name, just that. He quickly grabbed the phone, turned it face down, and whispered, "Go back to sleep." My gut twisted. Something didn't feel right, but I let it go. I didn't want to be the paranoid partner. I wanted to believe that love didn't need surveillance. The truth crept in slowly, not in dramatic confessions or obvious signs, but in whispers and shadows. He became more affectionate during the day, offering coffee, bringing home flowers, being overly present. I now understand that he was overcompensating. Guilt was driving his kindness, and that made everything feel even more distorted. How can someone lie and love in the same breath? The turning point came when I started pretending to be asleep. I lay there, eyes closed, heart thudding, breath even. I became familiar with his patterns. The way he slowly slid out of bed, the way he took his phone and charger with him, the sound of the balcony door unlocking. Some nights I'd hear him laugh, a soft, low chuckle I hadn't heard in months. He sounded happy, happier than he ever was with me lately. Then came the night he said it, "I miss you too." whispered into the phone just outside our bedroom. The pain hit me so suddenly it felt physical. My stomach knotted and my eyes welled up, but I stayed still. He didn't know I was listening. I felt like I was intruding on my own life. He returned to bed minutes later, kissed my shoulder, pulled me into him like nothing was wrong. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't move. I lay there numb, caught between the warmth of his arms and the freezing truth that he wasn't really mine anymore. I started noticing everything after that. How he'd leave his phone face down on the table, how he never let it out of sight, how he smiled while reading messages but looked bored talking to me. The energy he once poured into us was now going somewhere else. To someone else. I was living beside a man who was giving his most intimate moments to another woman while I slept next to him. Our bed had become a stage for lies. His actions were gentle, calculated, and deeply cruel, not through violence or anger, but through deception wrapped in quiet affection. The pain wasn't just in the betrayal, it was in the silence, the nights where I said nothing. The mornings where I made his coffee despite the ache in my chest, the days I told myself, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm overthinking, but deep down I knew he didn't cheat in the daylight. He cheated in whispers and taps on his phone in the way he carefully closed the door behind him. He cheated while I lay still, trusting, dreaming of a life that was already unraveling. The night I heard him whisper, "I miss you too," something inside me cracked. Not shattered, not yet, but cracked enough to let in a flood of questions I had long buried beneath love, convenience, and habit. I became someone I didn't recognize. I found myself scrolling through his social media not for confirmation but for understanding. I was searching for clues in photos, captions, comments. I studied every emoji like it was a confession. I wasn't proud of it, but I couldn't stop. That emotional thread, the one I used to share with him, now connected him to someone else. I could feel it like a cold draft in a warm room. He still kissed me goodbye. Still asked if I wanted anything from the store. Still texted me drive safe when I was out, but his eyes never looked into mine the same way. They looked through me, past me, like he was always halfway somewhere else. That kind of distance doesn't come from boredom. It comes from attachment. A new one, deep and unspoken. We were still technically together, but our intimacy was eroding silently. Conversations were shorter. His attention span thinner. I stopped telling him how my day was. What was the point? His mind was always elsewhere, probably with her. I remember one night I decided to test it. I came to bed late after him. I undressed slowly, slid under the blanket, and touched his back gently. He didn't move. Usually he would, even half asleep, he'd always reach for me, but this time nothing, just steady breathing. I lay there for hours, tracing the ceiling with my eyes, asking myself if he was thinking of her while lying next to me. Eventually, I started asking real questions, quietly at first. Is something going on? You've seemed distant lately. Are you sure everything's okay with us? He always had answers, always calm, always dismissive in the kindest possible way, and I wanted to believe him. I did, because I wasn't just afraid of losing him. I was terrified of what it said about me if he chose someone else. And that was the hardest part, realizing that while he had slowly detached from me and attached to her, I had slowly detached from myself. I stopped reading, stopped journaling. I canceled plans. I became consumed by the version of me that only existed in relation to him. I cried a lot in the shower. That was the only place I felt safe enough to feel it. The kind of sobbing that leaves your ribs sore. I couldn't tell anyone. I didn't even tell my best friend at first. I was too ashamed, I kept thinking. What did I miss? What was I not enough of? I remember the first time I tried to bring it up again, really bring it up. He looked tired, annoyed even. I can't keep doing this, he said. You're paranoid. Nothing happened. But it did. Even if he never touched her, something did happen. The late night texts, the emotional confessions, the need to hide it from me. That's what betrayal looks like. It's not always sex. Sometimes it's giving your soul to someone else while your partner's still in the room. One afternoon, I found a draft message on his tablet. Not sent, not deleted. Just there, like a half-truth left out in the open. It read, I wish things were different. I can't leave her yet, but I think about you all the time. I didn't confront him right away. I just stared at it, read it over and over until the screen dimmed. That message wasn't just for her. It was also for me. It was the answer I'd been searching for while pretending everything was fine. From that moment, my grief turned into anger, not violent, not loud, but sharp, focused. I began reclaiming pieces of myself. I reconnected with old friends. I returned to my books. I said yes to things that had nothing to do with him. And for the first time in months, I didn't care if he noticed. He had created a whole other emotional world outside our relationship, and I was done trying to drag myself into it. The hardest thing wasn't losing him. It was realizing how long I had stayed, trying to earn love I already deserved.